my dad was always drinking alcohol all the time, hiding it from my family and stuff. And I remember it caused so much destruction in my family. And then me thinking, I'll never turn out like him. I don't know. Do you know what? I'm not sure I know how to forgive.
You said you've been listening to my show for a long time. You know how to forgive. But you have no idea what love is at this point.
Well,
George, welcome to the show. You're on the air.
hello, Jesse.
Hey, George.
Hey, man.
Hey, man.
Jesse, I'm struggling with alcoholism.
What do you mean you're struggling with it?
So I've been like a habitual drinker for about 3 years. I've been listening to you for about 4 years. And I used to go fishing and listen to like you on my headphones and stuff.
Right.
And it made me feel good. Like I used to feel positive. But recently, like since the lockdown, I've been like drinking a lot to the point where it's like putting me in hospital and stuff. So I don't know if you have any advice.
And so how are you struggling though? What are you doing? And when you say you're struggling with, you fight with it? How are you struggling? I don't understand that.
I'm struggling because I
know, but how are you like, what are the steps in struggling?
Just like I always wake up thinking, oh, don't worry, I won't drink today. And then I go to the shop and then I am drinking. So.
Oh, you wake up and you tell yourself you're not going to drink?
Yeah, I don't know if it's the demons in my head, man. It feels like the devil, isn't it?
It is, 100%. Here's what I recommend. I recommend you get rid of all opinions, all ideas about drinking. Don't judge yourself. Don't tell yourself you're going to do it or you're not going to do it, because the drinking is not the problem. The problem is you're believing the thoughts and feelings about the drinking. You're not watching those thoughts. You're believing them, and that's why you're doing it. You need to watch those thoughts, and then let's say you don't drink for an hour or two, and all of a sudden the urge come really hard on you. You can't help it. You just got to do it, right? Be aware of yourself doing it. Be aware you're going to the refrigerator, wherever the liquor is. Be aware of yourself getting it out, pouring it into the glass. Be aware of yourself drinking it, but have no opinion about it. And I promise you, if you have no opinion about it, it'll be taken away from you. Don't go unconscious. It's consciousness that will cause you to overcome it. But don't try to fight it yourself. You can't fight that.
See, this is what I struggle with, because my father was an alcoholic, and I feel like I always remember growing up thinking I'll never be like my dad, and then now I'm kind of exactly how he is, and I don't speak to him anymore.
Because you judged your father, so you became like him. When you were a kid, you judged your father for drinking and carrying on, so you become like what you hate. Did you forgive your father for that yet? Have you apologized for hating him for that?
I found it really hard to forgive my father. In fact, in the last 2 months, I've actually cut contact with him because I just felt like, I don't know, I couldn't. I don't know. I just cut contact with him. I don't know.
So have you forgiven your father for drinking like and doing those things while you were growing up?
I haven't, no.
And how will you, that's why you're drinking too, because you're in hell right now. How will you be forgiven if you don't forgive?
Yeah, I know.
No, that was a question.
How will I be forgiven if I don't forgive? I know, because, I don't know. I don't know what to say. It's all new to me, you know? Like, this way of thinking and stuff.
And what gives you the right? Do you think you're better than your father?
No, I admire him.
And so if you admire him, you will forgive him so that your heart will change and then you won't need the drinking. The only reason you need the drinks like that, and you can't do it in moderation, is because you hate your father. So you've been separated from God, and Satan is your God. You don't have a right at all, not one human being have the right to not forgive other human beings.
I know. I find it hard though, Jesse. Like, I really do. Like, it's really frustrating for me because, like, I see my dad and I love him so much, but
You don't love him, you hate him
I'll be
because
honest with you, I do resent him. I do resent him. I do.
but then you don't love him, you just hate him. If you loved him, you would have forgiven him already. And so you're struggling because you're playing God. You think you have the right to resent your father, and as a result, Satan is your God.
I do feel that as well. I feel, yeah.
You notice how you said you were fighting with alcohol, you didn't want to do it?
Yeah, I always grew up thinking, I was like, I remember growing up thinking, like, my dad was always drinking alcohol all the time, hiding it from my family and stuff. And I remember it caused so much destruction in my family. And then me thinking, I'll never turn out like him. And then before I didn't even realise, and I just sat on this chair thinking, I'm exactly like my dad.
Right? You become like what you judge. You become like the person you hate. And your father didn't want to drink either. That's why he was hiding it. He didn't want to do it. And the same thing that caused you to do it was the same thing that caused him to do it. He hated his mother. He was yearning for his father. It's no different. Your father didn't want to be an alcoholic or drink, and it wasn't your father that's causing the destruction. It was your mother and your father. Your father hated your mother. He didn't know how to deal with her. He couldn't handle your mother.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. Looking. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, no, sorry. I'm just saying, like, yeah, I don't know. It's a lot for me to get my head around.
Your mother was not an easy person to deal with.
Huh?
Your mother was not an easy person for your father to deal with, and that's why he was drinking, because it was like trying to deal with his mother, and he couldn't handle it. He had the same issue you're having, and you're having the same issue he's having. And if you forgive him and your mother, have you forgiven your mother?
What do you mean, like, because I've listened to a lot of your shows, what do you mean, like, going to her and, like, saying, like, I forgive you?
Right.
I haven't done that, no. I have spoke to her briefly about it, because I spoke to her because I feel like it's easier to speak to my mum than it is to my dad. So I spoke to my mum and said, Mum, I need to forgive Dad. And she's like, don't do that because he'll go crazy. And I was like, okay, cool.
And the reason for that, because you are identified with your mother. You're just like your mother. You have your mother's mindset. You have her emotions. You have her thoughts. You're just like your mother. You have the spirit of the woman. And that's why you have not gone and forgiven your father, because you see him the same way your mother did. And your mother don't want you to forgive him because she wants you to be in her image.
I don't feel like I can forgive my father though, because if I go and say to my dad, "Oh, I forgive you," he will say to me like, "What are you forgiving me for? You're the one who's caused all the trouble." Da 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 da. Like, so it's like, I don't know how that's possible.
But how do you know what will happen if you haven't done it?
Just because I know my dad and he's still an alcoholic, and he's quite like aggressive alcoholic. So,
but how do you know what will happen if you went to your father and say, "Father, I am wrong for resenting you. I judged you all my life. I agree with my mother, and I've been wrong. I'm sorry." How do you know what's going to happen? You never had that type of conversation with him. You've
Yeah.
always treated your father the way your mother treated him. Yeah, alcoholic. He ain't worth nothing. We're better than him.
Mm. I don't know. I'm scared though, man. I don't know how I would like. I don't know how I would approach him, to be honest.
You would go to him, Father, I'm sorry for resenting you. I judged you all my life, and I'm wrong for that. I realize now you couldn't help yourself. I'm wrong. I'm sorry. What's hard about
But
that?
then I think if I approached him in that way, he would give me backlash, and it would end up in anger and me not speaking to him and stuff like that.
And
So, I don't know.
who is telling you that?
Well, I just know what he's like.
Who is telling you that that's what's going to happen?
Well, I just know what he's like. So.
Who is telling you that's what's going to happen if you did this?
What do you mean? He's so what? My thoughts
And where are you getting those thoughts from?
in my head.
And why would you create thoughts in your head that will hold you into captivity and keep you away from life? Why would you come up with a thought like that?
I don't know. Like, yeah, I don't know. Well, I would come up with a thought like that because I know from previous experiences.
But that's not it. Those are not your thoughts. Those are the thoughts of your God, the devil. He's telling you, don't go and forgive because you know how he is. This is what's going to happen. And you're saying, okay, God, I won't go and forgive. You're worshiping the devil. And you're going to stay in hell until you forgive.
No, but Jesse, you don't understand, man. It was so. Well, I don't want to say that, but it was so bad as a kid. Like, I don't. It's hard to forgive him. Like, I can't explain it. Like,
How you know it's hard to forgive him when you've never forgiven?
yeah, that's the one thing I do. Like, it weighs on my conscience. I'm thinking like I'm going to go to the grave, like resenting him. I will.
How do you know it's hard to forgive when you have never forgiven?
Okay. I know you're good at this. I've watched you for a long time. I know it's so hard though.
How do
So
you know it's
hard
hard to forgive when you have never forgiven?
But if I forgive him, does it mean that I have to like? Can I forgive him without being in? Do I have to say it to him?
How do you know it's hard to forgive when you have never forgiven?
Okay. I'm sorry. I'm just thinking. How do I know it's hard to forgive if I've never forgiven? Because it is hard to forgive.
How do you know it's hard to forgive if you have never forgiven?
I don't know. Do you know what? I'm not sure I know how to forgive.
You said you've been listening to my show for a long time. You know how to forgive. Admit that you were wrong for resenting him, even as a kid. That you were wrong for resenting him. You were wrong as an adult, and now you become like him. I'm wrong. I can't help myself, so I understand you couldn't help yourself. And
No, you are right.
stop listening to the devil telling you what's going to happen. You're going there to forgive. You're not expecting anything from him. Whatever he does is on him. It has nothing to do with you.
Mm. So what do you think is like for me, for someone in my position who feels like, I don't know, like resentful and it's hard to forgive, what would you say like is like a good train of thought to try and forgive, or what is the good mindset to try and forgive? I don't know.
A good mindset is no mindset.
No mindset.
Right. Just go and do it.
What?
Just go and do it. If you think about doing it, you're worshiping the devil, and he's not going to want you. All the little demons and the devil are not going to want you to do it because they want to live in you. And you shall always be turned away from God as long as you're turned away from your earthly father.
Yeah, because I do love him. It's not that.
You
It's
don't
I
love
do
him. If you loved him, you would have forgiven him.
Okay.
You are yearning for him, that's for sure, because you're yearning for a return to the Father, but you don't love him. You don't even know what love is at this point. But when you go and forgive, I'm sorry for resenting you, then you shall know what love is. But you have no idea what love is at this point.
Wow. Yeah, I believe what you're saying as well.
I want to know what love is.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that was my question anyway, so I don't want to waste your time.
Why don't you forgive your mother? She turned you away from your father by judging him, and you judged, by your mother judging him, you judged him too. You just like your mother. Why don't you forgive her for what she's done to you?
I'm not sure she's done anything bad to me.
Well, how do you think you became just like her? You think and act just like her. How did that happen?
Well, I wouldn't say that. I don't think I think I'm my mother.
Yeah, your mother is an unforgiving person too.
Well, this is what I'm trying to say though. It's like, if he didn't come home every day and get drunk and that, then we wouldn't feel the same. But obviously we went.
That had nothing to do with you. That was between your mother and your father. But your mother got you involved in it without you realize what was happening. Your father didn't come home because he hated your mother and he couldn't deal with the hell in her, so he would have to get drunk.
Yeah, you might be right.
No, I know I'm right.
I don't know.
Your mother is not an angel. Well, she's an angel sent by Satan. She's an evil angel, but she's not a God angel.
Do you know one thing I have learned since I've been listening to you is like women, they do worship Satan. Like their natural state is to worship Satan. Like 100%.
Are you doing the silent prayer? My silent prayer?
Do you know what? I was doing it about 2 years ago, and then I fell out of it.
Well, go back to the prayer.
No.
George, go back to the prayer. Forgive your parents, and let me know what happened. We have a counseling service. All right. And I have to admit,